What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and as always, it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. And today we're taking a look at Agents of Mayhem, a what would happen if story that continues on one of the endings of the Saints Row spinoff, Gat Outta Hell. It's a single-player, third-person shooting open-world game by the creators of Saints Row. Basically think Crackdown mixed with a little G.I. Joe versus Cobra, but created by people who used to watch those cartoons and think, man, G.I. Joe are just a bunch of wusses, you can't let the bad guys try again and again and again, and then somehow they hired the Baroness to run it all. One group's a militant faction of crazy special weapon enthusiasts, and the other is the enemy. Agents of Mayhem is out on the 15th for the retail price of $59.99 for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Let's see how it did, shall we? As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Agents of Mayhem. Welcome to Try Hard 3, The Try Hardening, the best carjacking animation ever created, and the start of a new series, Saints Row 5, Welcome to Not Steelport. Graphics are up first. This is actually a pretty contested field with so many open world games, and in many ways, Agents is up there. From the circling technological towers of the Silicon Valley sections to the more sedate and Asian-inspired areas in Seoul, the game's world is actually incredibly complex and varied. That doesn't mean stunningly interesting, but I'm going to get to that in a second. It's also surprisingly well made for skipping around from side quest to main quest, and kudos to them for some spectacular design and overall layout throughout the city for the gameplay that they're shooting for, and leaving avenues open for the agents' quick bursts and dodge moves, which would be useless in more cramped environments, and we've seen that actually come up in other games before. Luckily, Agents actually pretty much blazes its own path, and while that path could be considered a bit Overwatch, a bit Saints Row, and a bit of GTA, you know what? That's fine, because with some over-the-top animations and the way the game plays, that isn't really a bad place to find yourself, and at least gives you a platform for good gameplay. Really, if there's one place where Agent nails it anywhere, it's in the weapon effects. The game apparently went out and got all the explosions, and while the world is not really very destructible at all, that doesn't mean that when you've activated your special hip thrust rocket and it lands in the middle of 3 soldiers standing next to what's possibly the world's most dangerous generator setup, that you're going to be able to see what's actually going on, because you won't. But it actually works here. And one reason that is very good effects use and transparencies. Also, it's not hurt by some interesting character designs. Take, for example, Daisy. Obviously still pissed from not being hired to star in Netflix's show Glow. She basically grabbed a minigun and skates around the world killing everybody. Or Hollywood, who's pretty much so Johnny Cage you might as well be called Billy Prison and just be from an alternate universe. Or Kingpin, who's actually Pierce from the Saints Row series and still likes his pants low and his SMG sideways. Or any of the stable of 12, really. So finding a couple that you're going to like shouldn't be that much of a problem, and that's good because somehow someone made Agents with no custom create options, leaving you with only the skins for the guns and clothes of the 12 pre-made agents here. But you know what? We're helped by the fact that some of these characters are pretty cool. For example, Rama might be more subtle, using effective, excellent-looking invisibility cloaks before shooting a bad guy in the back, and Kingpin has the ability to lay down a ghetto blaster, and his special will have enemies dancing to tunes as he destroys everything around him for 11 city blocks. The issue here is, with all this complexity in the world and its overall design choice, it comes off as stunningly antiseptic. It takes a special genius to somehow really remove the artistic flair from Soul and make it look like it was glassed over by the designer of the friggin' minivan. Sadly, the game just doesn't really run very well. Even on the i7 at 4.2 and using a 1080, I was seeing FPS drops below 60 at only 1080p resolution, and when driving it can get downright chuggy hitting 45. The consoles try to hit 1080p 30 FPS and 1080p up to 60 FPS on the Pro, but in the end all platforms seem to be a bit unprepared for Saints Row Future War Edition and buckle when the going gets tough, and this is of course with the game day drivers. Sound, music, and voice.
All I ever wanted from anyone. That's how the world works. We have to trust each other.
The 8th century. What a pity you chose it for your stupid rendezvous.
And today we'll go with music first. This is incredibly lackluster. Where we've seen excellence in open world soundtracks in the past, none of that is really here, with generic sounding pop beats and ambient synth tracks, and honestly some of the most annoying battle music that I can remember in a long time. Now these games are always hard to hit just right, and the instrument choice and just overall styling is something that has to be structured around the narrative of the title as well, even if it's just a joke song to poke fun at other titles, or to surprise the player with something that doesn't fit, like Christmas songs during a funeral. Otherwise, it just seems to be taking up space, and to me, that's how the soundtrack felt. Overall, completely forgettable. Voice. I loved the Agents of Mayhem words of wisdom interludes. That shit cracked me up. They were over the top and just that typical stupid. But when the game tries to get even remotely serious, it sort of falls apart. And make no mistake, that's the actual aim of the devs, to bring down the level of what the hell that Saints Row 4 delivered to gamers and make it something a bit more manageable and maybe a cross between Saints Row 3 and 4. Instead, it's a bit like a bunch of third graders just learned what the word fuck meant. And of course, that brings us to sound. This is actually well done from the sense of locational perspective when an enemy to your right decides that today's the best day to see what your insides look like, to boss enemies that bring down weapons of Michael Bay destruction on your head. The audio layering and effects are actually really well done. Like when you're roller skating into an enemy's evil underground lair you found under a pile of shipping boxes and the sound cramps down around you, and then as you burst out into the bunker of bad guys +3, it sort of opens up again. Each agent in their assorted armory also has a very distinct sound, and I was surprised that even with 12 folks carrying a small nation's worth of guns into every burger joint they pass, no one actually seemed very samey. Honestly, most of this is handled really, really well. And of course, that brings us to gameplay and a bit about the story. Agents of Mayhem has to be one of the most abrupt beginnings for a game that I can remember. Basically, you're walking towards a door, some words are said, where you're going and who the bad guy is, and then the game proceeds to deliver a tutorial to you via alternating gameplay moments for your starting 3 agents. Now here, you're going to learn how to run and gun, dash, triple jump, and use your special abilities and so forth. As the world opens up around you and you're given access to the HQ and level ups, the game really actually gets going. This is easily one of the more enjoyable bases as well I have in a game, and that's a small thing to mention, but I figured I have to. It's not only new locations that you open up as you gain in level and renown, but there's also a number of story bits you can find here or there by walking around the room, and you have the ability to upgrade it to add to your current skills, and it just feels a bit more epic than many locations in other titles that try to tell you you belong to a massive top secret organization, but you're fucking shacked up in the back of someone's burrito trailer when they close down for the night. Now, the main crux of the game is to stop the plans of Legion in the City of Seoul. To do so, you have main missions, unlocking agent missions, doing global conflict missions. These are where you send your operatives to other lands with the chance of excellent rewards, but with the negative of having that agent missing while you do so. And remember, these are excellent to do as there's some secret tech in those locations, so it's worth not ignoring it, and I like to see a dev reward people for the little extra modes. Now, you can also jump into a series of bounties. These are updated daily and change, and you can invite friends to assist you in them, but they are not playing in your game. There's no multiplayer or co-op here at all. They are just basically adding to the totals of the things you need to do. So if it says take down 10 Legion turrets, you can do it alone, or you can have others activate that bounty and get the job done faster. You also have a variety of side missions, a ton of them, like racing, destroying undercover Legion vehicles, liberating locations so you can extort them for cash, diving into enemy strongholds to ruin their day, collecting vehicles for your HQ's resident Jeremy Clark, and half a dozen more. Of course, the main missions are the bread and butter here, and each one is bookended by a cutscene to flesh out the ever-widening circle of bad guys and gals involved. Also, kudos to them for the various shoutouts to Saints Row characters and really tying everything together. There's some very cool surprises. But this is also where Agent's problems showed up for me. First, it's just so goddamn random in battle, and while they try to play off the random monster closet bad guys in some of the missions with a Star Trek teleport signature graphic, in the end, the result's the same. Find a spot, start the mission, the game world many times locks you into a small area, and then you shoot the enemies. The only real connection is the fact that most of the shit you're blowing up, chasing, stealing, killing, shooting, or hacking is legions, even if it doesn't really make any sense at all to do so. And it can come off as random, or a failed MMO, because in a single-player game, having zoning like this is just all kinds of odd, especially this tight. And if this is someone's idea of open world, I would hate to see their idea of linear. Hey man, let's play a game. Boom, you're done, thanks. Second, the driving, of which there is quite a bit, never really works right. You can drift in turbo and get skins to change the colors and collect more than a dozen of them, but almost everything in the game world already feels like you're floating on the surface and not a part of it. Hit a car and watch it sort of flip away, even if you're in one of those I'm a better person than you are office desk size 2-doors. Now, that being said, overall control in Agents is actually really good, whether you're using the controller or if you have the PC, you can also try the mouse and keyboard. Now, as you level up, you not only unlock various elements for the HQ, like I mentioned before, but you unlock spots for gadgets on your guns and the ability to outfit more of them, as well as some core upgrades, which are massive upgrades to the agents themselves that add debuffs to enemies or buffs to you. In the game, there's various kinds of tech as well. Some can be outfitted to the current ability, adjusting them and making them stronger, making them last longer, or adding traits. Others can be created with an assortment of items you find around the game world, like a massive chrome bowling ball to take out enemies, and are basically secondary weapons. Here, when it comes to the specials though, The Mayhem moves, they're actually really cool and over the top for each agent. Where the magic exists for me, though, is in the combination of creating your best killing crew, mixing and matching their abilities depending on your playstyle and the enemy you want to face, as well as augmenting yourself with traits as you level up. Traits like haste, precision, and otherwise, adding in your gremlin gear and then just going off and seeing how you fare. The game really does become quite complex later on as you balance between characters you like and maybe a character that has a shield piercer ability so that they can do wicked damage to enemy shields, but isn't really your style at any other time. And to me, it's when Agents really elevated far above any other point in the almost week-long time I had with it. When I busted in on some bad guys and got an alert that one of my agents might do better against the boss, I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then because the bosses may have patterns and waves of their own, you might find yourself utilizing all three agents in a single battle between defending yourself, taking out their strengths, and destroying normal troops in the area. This mechanic also makes the agents more useful and rewards experimentation, which is going to matter when you choose your difficulty. Now, as you guys know, I test all levels of difficulty from easiest to hardest. Agents has 15, and while increasing enemies' power and hit points is, of course, happening at each layer, they also employ different abilities and tactics as you go higher up, buffing their teams with things that defend against your exact weapons and so forth. The end result is if you want to play with maybe just one or two agents as your main, then a lower difficulty is for you. But as you go higher and higher, you're going to need to be absolutely focused on who works best for a given situation. And I like that. It gives you a reason to choose them in the game and feels far more organic than, oh my god, the bad guy's riding a robotic ball, so you need a sniper. And each increase in difficulty also increases rewards, and in a short amount of time regardless, you're going to be swimming in all types of scrap and items, which makes the inclusion of microtransactions all the more puzzling. That's right, microtransactions. Real money for day one stuff. Like them, hate them, think they're cool if they're only cosmetic, opinions vary. My stance is known. I played the game without any, and it didn't really make a difference, but man, those do not need to be there. Now, when it comes to length, the game is filled with content. It's probably 20 hours to get through the story if you don't unlock any other agents or do anything, though I think it'll be even longer, and of course you have those different difficulties, and you're talking triple to quadruple that for doing the side missions, doing team missions, unlocking the agents, and so forth. There's actually a pretty big game here. But how fun is it? Well, that's why we talk about fun factor. Agents is fun at times, though, and while I absolutely adore juggling agents, by the time I got done, I was really done. And there's a number of reasons for that. Poor performance, lack of co-op when it really seems like it needs to be there, MMO stylings galore, and honestly, after a while, the city and the things that I was doing, despite the fact that combat was still somewhat fun, just wasn't that interesting to explore anymore. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale, with rent being replaced by deep sale on PC titles. You know, really, the game should just be called Agents of Issues. There is fun, some to be had here, but it's mired deep down into some really heavy MMO stylings that I don't really think can be removed, like the locking out of locations when you're in battles. And that it's missing the one thing that MMO games have to offset that, and that's community and cooperation. So it's very honestly odd. Feels like separated pieces throughout with really questionable performances and, of course, those strange microtransactions. So that's it for me. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe check out Twitter or Patreon. That's how I continue to give you guys no bullshit, no sponsor-filled reviews. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.